I'm Lorelai.
And I am Leah.
Welcome on I'm an Equestrian podcast. We founded this podcast 2 years ago, and today we are thrilled to release this new episode in English. In this podcast, we chat with great equestrians and seek to better understand our sport. What is it to be a horseman? What does it cost? What do they dream of? We hope that each of our episodes will participate to strengthen your passion for horses and to empower you as a horse lover, a horse rider, and a person.
Throwback to our Wellington trip, and here is another episode that was recorded over there. This week, and for the second time in I Am an Equestrian, we do not have one guest, but two. A unique couple and duet, Beezie and John Madden, or John and Beezie Madden. This makes no difference as the two of them are profoundly interrelated. Beezie is just such an unbelievable good human being, and the horses feel that, and that has actually nothing to do with riding. Here is what John said about her during our conversation, and I feel that this is the right way of describing her sweet, caring, and passionate personality. Such qualities you will definitely hear and feel while listening to this episode. You will also learn about the journey that led them climb up the sport ladder, about the roles each of them plays in the other's career, and eventually how we happen to become one of the, if not the, best female riders of the generation. When I think of all these amazing and fascinating people we meet thanks to this podcast, I can only feel very lucky. Each one of these encounters and interviews help us grow and move forward to more passion and ambition.
When we started to plan our trip to Wellington to record new episodes, the first name we wrote on our guest wish list was this one, Beezie Madden. Beezie has always been someone we have looked up to, and getting the chance to listen to this amazing rider tell her story and share her equestrian philosophy was somehow an obvious choice. I then texted someone who is one of the people I admire most in life, Bryce Goguet. Bryce Goguet is the founder of Voltaire Design, and my lucky professional path led me to work in his team for a couple of months. Bryce made it possible for us to record this episode and then agreed to be the unique sponsor of this episode. Such an amazing combination, I believe. Voltaire Design is a sports saddle designer. Their in-house team of researchers, engineers, and saddle experts are searching innovative answers to free the potential of each horse rider couple. In a world full of elegance, the French touch impulses a revolutionary dynamic. Designed as pieces of art, their saddles are both elegant and highly technical, providing riders with the best comfort and balance. But more than just a brand, I believe that Voltaire Design is a philosophy. The brand identity and company organization are built on very strong values: ambition, commitment, humility, team spirit, ownership, freedom. Don't these make you think of someone? Like Beezie, for instance? Beezie has been one of the first international champions to join the brand, followed by other star names like Oliver Town-Ant. She has, ever since this very first year, faithfully been riding with Voltaire saddles. So just like Beezie Madden, just like me, ride with a Voltaire saddle and express your potential. So hello Beezie, hello John. Well, before we start, let me take some time to thank you again for being here, for accepting our invitation. I know that you prefer being with your horses than in front of a microphone, so thank you very much. So you guys met in the 80s and bought your first farm together in 1998. Is that right?
First farm together?
Yeah.
No, sooner.
No, we moved in 1988, I think.
Yeah? That's it. Okay.
We got married in 1998.
Yeah.
That's right. You got married. At this time, Beezie, you were already debuting at Grand Prix level. And you're now one of the most successful American and world riders of the last decades. You have represented the United States in numerous competitions and championships. You were the first woman rider to pass the $1 million mark in earnings in showjumping. So I will not list all the titles and victories you earned in your career, but I shall take a minute to mention some of the most significant achievements you've had. 1987, you participate to your very first World Cup final in Paris. 1997, you win the USA National Championships and are awarded the Rider of the Year title. 2004 Olympic Games in Athens. You won the gold medal as part of the United States team in showjumping. The next Olympics, Beijing 2008, you got the team gold medal plus the bronze medal in individual. A couple of years later, at the World Equestrian Games in Caen 2014, you earned 2 medals, bronze, both in team and individual aboard Goddess. Rio 2016, and the list keeps going. Olympics, you won team silver, and April 2018, and we were there, you became the Longines FEI World Cup champion riding Breitling. John, you've been managing the business, the bond, supporting Beezie all through this journey. And if we had to describe the journey, we could use breathtaking, I guess. So my first question will be this one. How has all of this started?
Well, can I add something?
Yeah, sure.
Because I think one of the best weeks we ever had in show jumping was the World Championships in Aachen.
Yeah.
With Authentic, and I think it was team silver and individual silver. You left that one out, but that was and I only mention it because it was just a great week where everything went
so
beautifully,
well,
except for the last fence in the individual in the jump off. But that didn't even matter. The week was so good it didn't make any difference.
But the list is not exhaustive. I couldn't. Yeah.
But that was one of the real highlights for us.
That's real.
That was one of the real highlights for us.
What was the beginning of everything? Because it's such an incredible journey.
I mean, I guess the beginning was I grew up with horses. My parents had horses when I was born. And I grew up going to the stable every day with them. And so horses were kind of like, not really a pet like a dog, but I was very comfortable being around them. And my parents gave me a great start from my beginning of my riding career. And I've kind of had to work my way into what I had wanted to do. I took care of my own horse, and we did it as a family together. My brother rode as well, and so did both my parents, and we kind of went to shows together and took care of our own horses, and always had a trainer though, so they were very good about that. They didn't want to teach their own child. So I did have plenty of mentors along the way, and I guess I got a really good opportunity when I did go to school for 2 years, college, and then Katie Prudent offered me a job as a working student. I took that instead of going on to 2 more years in university. I was accepted to the University of Charlottesville in Virginia, and I opted not to go there. So I think that was kind of the turning point in my career when I decided this was going to be my career.
John, were you born in an equestrian family?
No, not at all, actually. My brother Frank, who's in the horse business, always told my parents I had my favorite dream last night. I dreamed I rode a horse. So they let us ride like a hobby horse, and then took us to pony rides. And my brother really loved it, and he did it. So my father and my mother, everybody just went to a riding school and took some riding lessons. And I took some riding lessons and did that. And then we had some little problems in the family, I ended up, every time I needed money, I did it with horses. So that I was exposed to it, and then when I was a really little boy, I got paid for, we had horses in straight stalls.
Okay.
You know, that they, at the riding school. So it was my job to clean their feet, and I made $1 or $2 every day doing that. And every time after school or around, I found a way to make some money with horses.
As you say, John, you were both exposed to horses. Has becoming a professional horse rider, Beezie, and you, John, managing the career of Beezie, always been an obvious path for you?
To me, a lot of it was necessity. So I also got to start with Katie Prudent. Before that, I was working as a groom for different people, and then I think George Morris gave me a very good opportunity. And for one reason or another, I was his groom, and we ended up going to Europe in 1978 or something, 77 or 78. And I was George's groom, and that really exposed me to the bigger world of show jumping. Because when you grew up in the United States, don't forget the world was much bigger. And kind of the biggest thing here, the United States equestrian team was almost outside of everybody's reach because it wasn't so long. It was only in the end of the 50s, early 60s that it wasn't cavalry officers anymore, that it became civilians. And so even that many years later, for many of us, the international show jumping was out of our realm of concept. And in those days, the biggest business in the United States was all hunters and equitation, and then some of the crazy horses did open jumpers. And then, of course, there was the United States equestrian team. So I was very lucky with the timing, and I got to see the bigger world of show jumping, international show jumping, with that exposure. My first time outside of the country, I landed at Paris, Charles de Gaulle. I was 17 years old. I had to rent 2 cars to get organized for George Morris's stable to go there. It was a crazy few days. I had a kid that never been outside of, the small parts in the United States, and here I was in Paris, so it was quite an interesting thing. But like my brother, for instance, at that same time, was much more successful than me, and he really took the American route, that he was teaching riding, and the equitation was a really big part of the business. But because I was exposed to those other things, and then I was also very lucky that the Longines World Cup was invented. At that time, the first final was 1979. So we got to go there and experience international things. So that sort of set me on a separate course. And then because I knew through Katie, when I was working at Plain Bay with Katie, we developed a relationship with Johann Heinz, buying horses. I got to know some people in Europe, and so my career path went completely different. But when I left Katie's, then I had to decide what to do. And at that time, not so many people were going to Europe and things like that. So I had a few contacts in Europe. I was young and stupid, so I started to bring some horses and do some different things with horses. And then I was, like I said, it was necessity because there was this young girl working at Katie's, and she looked pretty good and she rode pretty good. And I thought she was all right. And actually, the story is quite funny. I was talking to Beezie's mom one day, because I had different people riding my horses and things like that. I said, boy, I'd like to, it'd be great if I could get a rider like Beezie to work for me. And so Kathy Patton, Beezie's mom, said, well, why don't you ask her? Because here I was, a little cheap horse dealer dealing with whatever horses came my way, just trying to find a way through. And I didn't have much to offer Beezie, but she took a chance on me, and then through some necessity, things worked out okay.
Was it an obvious choice for you, Beezie, becoming a rider, or have you considered like taking another path and doing something else with your life?
I think it was fairly obvious. I didn't know when I was younger if I would be good enough. I grew up in Wisconsin, and I basically didn't leave the Midwest, which is not exactly the heart of horse country. I didn't leave the Midwest till I was 17 years old or 18. So I really didn't know. And then when I started working for Katie, she really encouraged me and gave me confidence that I had a chance to do it, and kind of opened my eyes as well to the international scene of riding on the team and stuff like that, because she was doing it at the time and very successful. And I worked for her and was a part of that. And so then it became obvious, because when I had to pick whether I was going on to 2 more years of school or going to work for Katie, I had no idea what my major would be if I did go on to 2 more years. And I did know I wanted to ride, so I think that was when it became very clear.
You say that you may be missing confidence at this time, and you are very discreet. You are maybe kind of shy. We've been looking forward to listening all the interviews you gave, to prepare this interview, and there are very few actually, and we do not really know like the woman and the individual you are. You're always outside of the scene. I mean, with the media and everything. But you have such a personality in the ring also. So could you both tell us a little bit about like your personality? And as you seem very complementary to each other, the reason why your duo operates so well.
I think you're right. I am a little shy. I'm not that outspoken. So you won't see me a lot with social media or platforms or things like that. But what I do is I'm involved with our federation quite a bit. Right now I'm chair of the sport committee, the jumping committee. I'm on another council. I just got off the board of directors because I had already done too many years. Served too many years. I wasn't allowed to serve another year consecutive. I can take a year off and serve again. So I like to do my talking or method through those ways where I think I will be more successful, because I don't think I'm that outspoken or that good at the social media or that good at communicating other ways that I'm going to be able to help in that way. But I think I try to get put back into the sport in a ways that I can be successful in it. Yeah, and I think I'm most comfortable on a horse out in the ring, doing my thing, is really what I like to do. And I think I'm pretty good at communicating with the horses and other animals, and that's a little bit my personality.
Yeah. I agree with her. And I think my own thinking is, I hope Beezie and myself and our organization has been plenty accessible to the media for what matters. But, I don't think we ever said they wouldn't do an interview or something like that, especially if it pertains to horses and things like that. I hope we've been generous. I think if you see our sort of official social media, we work hard to try to share what we know, and I think we try to do some educational things and things like that I think are really important. But it's our private lives and everything like that are not really other people's business so much. I think that my own feeling is Beezie's she's had some pretty good success, and I think that maybe what's really, really important is sort of defining difference, or the thing that makes it. Some people say the most important thing to being a great rider is having empathy for the horse. Well, I think that's true, but I also think that Beezie's just such an unbelievably good human being that the horses feel that. And that has actually nothing to do with riding, but I believe it's true. I'm the other side. I'm the bad guy.
Complimentary.
Yes. She's the sweet, I'm the sour.
So could you describe the way you work together? What is your role in the business and in each other's life?
I think our roles are evolving a little bit right at the moment, but I was primarily rider and a little bit of a teacher, and John handles pretty much everything else. He handles the financial part of it. He handles the looking for horses, which I also help with, but we do that together. Yeah. He does a lot of the teaching, especially at the shows. I do some at home more than at the shows, and he also manages the staff, a lot of relations with the owners and sponsors, and we have a team behind us that help with all that as well. But I think now my riding is going to be not quite as involved as it has been. I'm going to mostly ride young horses and then be able to have time to help with the students and ride some of their horses as well. So I think that's evolving a little bit, that we're going to be sharing that a lot more now. But I think that in a nutshell.
Yeah, what I see is that Beezie's always been the specialist with really teaching both the students and the horses. And I'm more a coach and sort of a coach for our team, whether it's with our assistants or our grooms or our vendors, the people we buy things from, and with whomever. So my role is more of coach, more of risk assessment and management and crisis management. But that's in kind of all the phases of that. And I hope in a little bit long range direction. So one of the things that I see talking about long range direction is I think that we can help the United States a lot by doing what we've been doing. And that's Beezie developing horses into championship level horses. She's done it incredibly successfully over the years. The only difference is those horses have never been for sale because of our great sponsors that we've had historically and the one we have now, Mrs. Wexner. And that all is continuing, but the horses will then be sold so that other riders can take them on, hopefully to be successful for the United States and win more championships and things like that. But Beezie will be basically the driver and the manager of that aspect of things. So if a horse starts jumping in higher levels and she doesn't want to do that level, she'll select a rider and do things like that. But she'll sort of manage that, and I will continue doing kind of the coaching role for a lot of the students. And one of the things we do for our students that I think is really important is more career management, because it's not just what happens in the competition arena or what happens in the training arena, but it's also trying to manage their careers so they can attain their goals.
We will talk about that later. But first, so you both worked with Katie Prudent, who is one of the most successful rider and trainer here in the US. She's known for having trained a numerous number of top-level show jumpers. Can you tell us about Katie and what you have learned along with her?
I think when I first went to Katie, I had done well in the equitation ranks, but had just started to show jumpers when I was 17. And she really opened my eyes to, I think, especially how to go fast, because before that I had some instruction with the equitation, and my junior hunter became my jumper, and it was pieced together. But I think she has a super background with George Morris and things like that, and she has an incredible way of teaching. And I think I learned obviously a lot of things about riding, but also a lot of things about teaching as well, and about training horses that I didn't know before. Before that I was a junior and I was learning things to make me better, but I think every rider, when they go from being a junior to being more advanced, it becomes also about making yourself better, because we're always improving, but also about training the horse. And I think that you have to make that transition. I think Katie really helped me with that transition into going from focusing on what I needed to do better to adding in what the horse needs to do better as well, and that I can actually improve the horse myself.
When recording episodes with people who are familiar with the American system, there is one topic that always comes up: the horse riding education here in the US and the significant role of hunter and equitation disciplines. As per most of the American show jumpers, BZU started riding in the hunter classes and learned the basics of show jumping thanks to this discipline. How much has the hunter influenced your riding? And more generally, how important is the system in the education of horse riders?
I think our system is is a very good one. I think it could be improved some, but I think we're one of the best at taking riders that maybe aren't the most talented riders and turning them into very successful riders. I think the talented ones are going to be good in any system, really, but I think starting with the hunters, generally, you have to learn style, you have to learn technique and smoothness and importance on accuracy and things like that. And I think when you start the equitation, it becomes more about accuracy and more about being able to ride lines that you're going to see in a jumper or international competition and be able to do it really well. And I think our system makes it so that people learn to do that well. We're already drifting towards this phase where kids are saying, I don't want to do the hunters and the equitation, I just want to do the jumpers, because it's their shortcut to success. You know, they can get a good horse and run around like a monkey and win some classes. And I think you get that to some extent when you don't have the hunter and the equitation system. And I think like in Europe and stuff like that, they're more and more getting into style and things like that. So I'm not criticizing them, but you can have more people flying around but not doing it with as much style or with being able to influence the horse in the proper way, and they never will learn that. On the other hand, we need some more rough and tumble kids that just go in there and get the job done as well. So both are good, and I think if you can combine them both somehow, it would be really good.
Yeah, it's interesting because so you have a 12-year-old kid and they get a horse that's almost impossible for him to knock down 1 meter or whatever. And let's just say the kid's a terrific kid and really great about trying to be a student and this, that, but they go in the children's jumpers or whatever. I don't even know what they are, and I don't even know the heights. But so they go in and they make 5 or 6 mistakes, significant mistakes, and the trainer tells them, oh, you could have done this better and you could have done that better, but they won the class. You know, for sure, even if they're the best student in the world, yeah, but I won. And that's one of the really good things about the equitation is whether the judge is good or bad, whether you win or lose, the fundamentals of it, of at least judging, that the idea is to do correct fundamental riding, on the whole, that helps you to be able to teach somebody correct fundamental riding. So, but the downside of it is it becomes an end in itself. And what I mean by that is a lot of pretty good kids, just their whole goal is just to get to an equitation final or but that's kind of okay. But it doesn't really, it can go too far that way. And like Beezie said, it can also go too far the other way, is produce hothouse plants that aren't, rough and ready enough and able, I would say it's a common thing when we get a kid out of the junior ranks. I would say it's a real common thing. They have to learn to ride forward and be much more aggressive. I would say that's a consistent standard problem. But the system does produce a tremendous number of riders with good basics. And if you say it produces as an avocation many people that can enjoy riding for really a long time. I don't think it really produces more great riders than any other system.
In an interview available on the FEI website, Beezie, you said, for the most part, it comes down to 3 things: basic position, basic flat work, and trusting the horse. So what I'd like to do is to ask you, what does each of these mean to you? And is this from Hunter that you got to learn and master those 3 fundamental skills?
So basic position,
basic flat work, and trusting the horse.
So I think basic position and basic flat work all go together. I think it's how you, with the basic position, gives you the ability to influence a horse in the best possible way, because especially as a woman rider, I don't have the strength of the men, but if I have the correct position and learn the right methods of things, I can ride almost as strong as any other man with my leverage and basic way of influencing a horse. I think the flat work is the same. It's all about control and communication with the horse. You know, there's some disciplines in that you have kind of black and white things. You go or you stop, you know, and I think those are pretty clear. But when you have, it's almost like a conversation you're having with the horse in the ring. And I think it's all about levels of how much does the horse slow down when you pull on the mouth, or you don't want him to stop. And they all have to, just general flat work is creating that ability to have a conversation with the horse in the ring without having it be an argument.
It makes me think of Julie Ulrich's words. Do you know her?
Yeah.
So in a French interview, she said that basically what we have to do is to understand what the horses are thinking of every stride.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah, try to think what the horse, you know, you have to put yourself in the horse's head. He has a totally different point of view as you. I mean, imagine you don't know the course, you don't know anything, and this person is pointing you at this fence and that fence, and you imagine it in an indoor ring too, when there's might be 5 fences in front of the horse at one time, and you know, it has to know which fence you're going to. So I think understanding a little how a horse thinks, and the horse did not walk the course like you did. The horse, you know, he's really depending on you and having a lot of trust in you as a rider when he puts himself out there. And I think in return, we also have to have some trust in the horse, that I'm not the type that will dominate a horse to the point where it has no input. And I think if you can use the horse's input to help you, I think you're the most successful that way.
It seems to me, if I watch it, you know, we work on this together a little bit, and the trust is huge. But the correlation between basic flat work and basic position is kind of simple. If you've ever seen these rally drivers, the driver is driving and there's a navigator telling. The navigator is not a backseat driver. They have a vocabulary and a communication that gives only the information that's really important. And that's what the rider has to do through their position and trusting the horse. Because if you've ever had a backseat driver, it's somebody telling you everything to do when you drive. You lose your concentration completely. And show jumping is very much a concentration sport for the horses. So the position is the vocabulary with the horse. And one of the things we tell our riders sometimes is try not to be a rider with Tourette's. You know, Tourette's syndrome? So if your position is not correct, that would be the same as a poor person with Tourette's doing a radio interview. The horse is listening to you with all of their senses. The rider's balance, the rider's use of aids, So if the position is not correct, it's the same as somebody trying to say poetry with a bad vocabulary, or me trying to do this interview in French. It would be difficult.
Okay, let's jump into another topic. Beezie, back in 2004, you were the first female rider to reach to the top 3 world ranking. Have you, at some point in your career, had the feeling that being a woman was an obstacle to your evolution?
No, actually never, because I grew up in the United States. There's more girls actually riding than guys when you're riding ponies and equitation and things like that. So really, if there was a boy riding, he was kind of the outcast. But I think it's developing more boys are doing it now. But I think once you get to the jumper ranks, and particularly international ranks, there's probably more guys than girls. But like I said, with the training that I've had and growing up in the United States, I never really thought about it until I went to Europe and people would interview me about being a woman rider. Yeah, I guess that's good. But if
I keep going that road, there's another topic, but we talk about it with both male and female riders, is the balance between personal life and sports, which can be very complicated. We know how time-consuming is a sport. Like, you have to go at shows, different shows every week or so. It's sometimes 52 weeks showing or 51 weeks showing a year. So how did you manage to find the right balance in your life? And is this a question that you both had to address at some point in your life and in your marriage also?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think we have sacrificed family a little bit. We didn't have children, and we probably would have loved to spend more time with the rest of our family at times as well. But you kind of make that choice of, well, I'm going to do what I can to be as good as I can at this, if that's what I'm going to do. And that became important to us.
I think we're both kind of driven people. Somebody's asked us a question, it must be very difficult to be married and work together for all these years. And Beezie had a great answer. She said, if we weren't in the same business, we'd never see each other.
I'd never be home.
Yeah. So we got pretty lucky with that we have mutual goals. And I'm not sure if there's anybody in the world that can say they don't have any regrets about some of the decisions they've made. But we've been really lucky, and I'm not so sure. Sometimes I don't envy people that have a lot of choices. I say sometimes to people, I would have failed at almost everything I did successfully had I had a choice, because I would have given up at the wrong time. So I think like our background and our start and our passion for the sport and everything really made it that we didn't have so many choices that we thought we had. Maybe outside it looked like we had choices, but for what we wanted to do, there were not a lot of choices. We just kind of kept going, trying to do the best we could, I guess.
I think we put all our money that we had in, we win a little money and we go to the next show.
Yeah. There was not a lot of questions, and there still aren't. Like, right now, we've had things are not so bad, but we're just excited about going to the next thing all the time. It's not like we're saying, oh, should we plan this and do that? I think we mostly follow our passion.
I would like to talk about sport with you. We know how the sport changed over the last decades. Can you picture how was international show jumping when you first reached this level, and how is it now?
Well, I would like to kind of interject something, because I think Beezie came along at a very interesting time. Before, when we started at this level, and I started a little before Beezie because I was working for Katie and my experience with George, and I was a groom. So my position was quite low, but I was exposed to a very high level of jumping. And that was a really big transition time, because the Americans, we had 99% American thoroughbreds. And we had a real American style of riding, because we had super hot horses that had all of their own self-motivation and things like that. And then we had a more European style of riding that even within European countries was very different. The French style was quite a bit different than the Italian style, and certainly very different than the Germanic countries and the lowlands. So I think it was interesting when Beezie came along, partly because of our friend Johan Heinz, who was protege of Alwyn Schackenmüller, and his influence with European bred horses and our influence with American horses. I think Beezie was a real pioneer of a world jumping style, which is basically, I think she was a real pioneer of this style. She's, Americans say she has the American style. A lot of Europeans say she's not really like an American because she rides more European style. I think she was really on the cutting edge of a world style. So one of the biggest things that changed for me in the sport, I can remember back a long time ago, we were experimenting with a lot of things, but the biggest thing that changed to me was the breeding of the horses. The horses are just better, more suited for the sport now than they've ever been before. And I foresee them continuing to improve for the sport, to be more specialized, to have it easier and easier for the horse to do the sport well. But that's changed a lot, and that's harmonized or homogenized the riding style a lot. That didn't really answer your question.
Yeah, it did.
There's other things about the sport that are so, I mean, it's unbelievable how different it is now. When we were young, Beezie mentioned it in the Hall of Fame thing, like thanking the people that she was inducted into the Show Jumping Hall of Fame in the United States a couple of days ago, and mentioned all the people that came before her that made it that she could have such a good career. But even to compare what one's career could be like today, we never could have dreamed in the early 80s that we would be sitting here in a stable like this and have had the success we've had, because it didn't even exist.
Yeah.
The most successful people, super successful trainer, rider, whatever, in the United States in the early 80s, they were lucky if maybe they could have a farm. And it was just, they did everything. They drove the truck, they mucked the stalls, they braided the horses, they did everything. So those people set it up that our careers could be much better, and I hope we can set it up that other people in future generations will have better careers.
Beezie, do you feel that it's more complicated now, like to win classes, because there are so many people out there, you know, being talented, good, and
for
going
sure
fast?
The competitiveness is, I mean, just sheer numbers. There's twice as many people in the competitions now as there used to be, at least. I mean, sometimes three or four times more, and it's become so global. I mean, you have people from all over the world here in WEF competing. Parts of the world where you never dreamed of that people would come and be successful against the Americans and the Europeans, you know, and then there was some South Americans that did well every now and then, but it really was a small world when I started. And now, I mean, you can have somebody from anywhere in the world that comes along and is very successful
Really
rider, and I think that's great for the sport. But the number of shows and the number of horses and the number of, I mean, you used to have a downtime, and now you have to make your own downtime if you want it, because you could go year round in this sport.
But I think it's also a double-edged sword. I think that the sport is much more sophisticated now, much more specialized, much more, unfortunately, one-dimensional. Come on, if you look at the competition arena here, it could be anywhere in the world. And that has strengths and weaknesses. There's good and bad to everything. You have to evolve. You know, so many more people now can have success in show jumping, whether it's as a barn manager, or whether it's a rider, or whether it's developing young horses. I mean, the number of opportunities out there now are huge, because the sport's huge. Before, you know, really a long time, there were very few people in it, but the sport didn't need many people either, because it was so small. So if you couldn't really excel, you really had no chance to make a living. Then you had to go sell shoes or something. So, you know, it goes both ways, I think. There's positives and negatives to both. And the fact is, it is what it is, and it's continuing to evolve. So there's a lot more specialty things now. The number of competitors, the number of shows, all of that has increased tremendously. One of the unfortunate things is the number of horses being bred is not growing as fast as the market is. So we have to be really careful to try to shepherd the business through properly, that it stays a very healthy sport.
Last year, you decided not to go to Tokyo to preserve your horse. You declared, "We all believe strongly in Garen's future as a championship horse. But now it's not the right time for him yet. We hated to let our country and teammates down today. But the only thing more important than the team is yours." We all agree that the respect of horses' integrity always guide our decision as competitors. But is it always a possible option?
I think it's always an option. It's not always an easy option to take. I think, again, it's generally a sacrifice. Now for me, I thought it was very clear that if my horse wasn't ready and I wasn't ready to contribute to a team gold medal, which was our goal, that it was not the right thing to do. So it was easy, but at the time it was difficult particularly because it was right in the middle of the Nations Cup at Rotterdam. But and I think there's times when we had the option still of pulling out. Had we already been in Tokyo and then been faced with the problem that he wasn't ready, well, you gotta go, and so I think, yes, there is an option, but you have to try to also not put yourself in the position where you don't have an option.
Yeah.
As well. You have to be realistic.
And, we probably shouldn't get too much into the Olympic formats, but when you had 3 scores and 3 to count, Beezie's goal and my goal would be to go and contribute for the team no matter what. But then you can look at the other side. If you looked at it and, okay, we had 4 and a drop score, maybe the decision could have been harder, because you can say, yes, maybe we'll contribute once and maybe we'll be the drop score once. But when you had 3 scores and 3 scores going to count no matter what, it became, in a sense, easier to put the horses good first, because you're not going to risk eliminating your team with a big score. But that's getting maybe too far into that. The real thing is, I think it's on a daily basis and on an hourly basis and everything else, it can be really hard. And I don't think it's fair to judge people on some of the decisions they make, because it can be very personal decisions. Maybe they know things about the horse or their situation that we don't know. So it's not really fair to judge people on, on what did happen or that they made a bad decision or something like that. But I think the principle that you have to go by, and I think a principle that's worked really well for us, is to try to say, okay, number 1, the horse. Number 2, the country. Number 3, everything else. And I think that's, if you can try to have that be your principle and use that to the best you can, you're not going to make all the right decisions. For sure, we've made a lot of wrong decisions. But if those can be more your guiding principles and see if you can't fulfill those as much as possible, I think that guides you through a lot. And, this year we were in an easier position too. Beezie didn't want to go there and not go real well. She had nothing to prove, right? I mean, the only reason to go is to go if you think you can win. So
I think the hard part is that line between what's not good for the horse and what's good for the horse, because at times the horse needs to get pushed through some things. Maybe it's even as far as some soreness issues, or just like when we get sore in the gym or something, we have to push through it sometimes. You don't just stop. And I think so that's where the fine line and the decision making gets difficult, because you don't want to just be a weenie and never get the horse to where it needs to be, So I think that's where horsemanship comes in, and the hard decision making comes in. I think my decision was not as hard last year as sometimes it can be.
There are times when it can be very unclear, huh?
Yeah.
There are times when, you lose sleep over it. You're not sure what the right thing is, and you have to try to. And then some of the worst things that happen come completely out of the blue. And on the other side, some of the good things that happen come out of the blue. You can't predict everything. I think it's really important, and maybe another way to say it is, I would say, it's sort of one consistent thing is every single time we've done really well at a championship or a big thing, we were sort of saying, I can't wait till it starts. And every time you just, even in the back of your mind, or, like Beezie said, you're not quick to pull the plug, you're not quick to give up, but every time you say, well, maybe if we had a day or two more or a week or two more, then you have to ask yourself really the question, are we pushing too hard? Are we trying to push through what we shouldn't push through? Or. But I do think it's a very bad thing when people get judgmental about other people's situations like that, because some of the more difficult things we ever had came completely out of the blue. And when you don't know really the full story, these are not black and white things. All you have to do is work with a vet a few times and find out the more tests they have, the more questions you end up with. There are not many black and white answers.
That's true.
So you mentioned it, you just mentioned it. You like to contribute to your country. You like to represent the country. Why is this so important for you to be wearing the red vest, the American red vest, in the show? I know I think you earned 13 medals along with the team at all combining.
The Pan Americans.
Yeah, the Pan Americans, the WEG, and the Olympics.
That's possible.
Yeah. So have you always given priority to the team?
I would say yes. Because I think one thing is patriotism. I think in the era that I grew up, that was the thing that everybody wanted to do, was ride on the team. You didn't have all these other individual events that were worth $1 million in prize money or something like that. So the getting on the team was that was the cool thing. That was what everybody wanted. And that's what motivated owners to buy horses for people as well. And I think we have always been lucky and had owners that were motivated for the same reasons for the country. And so that's really, we've been able to keep that as our focus. And I think that's enabled us to really enjoy what we do. And it gives you a bit of purpose to what you're doing as well, I think, to represent your country and go to the Olympic Games or Pan American or wherever. And be a part of what the USA is doing.
I think you also shape it a little bit you shape it a little bit in the way you do things. Like for us, it was always clear. I'm not exact. It's an interesting question. Why? I'm not sure why, except maybe our predecessors. William Steinkraus was a hero, and a friend. Frank Chapeau. Frank Chapeau would have bled red, white, and blue, period. It was the team. And something about doing things in a team is nicer than an individual thing, too, when it's a team effort. But it was in our DNA, I think, that the epitome of the sport was representing the United States and in team competition. It's been really a big thing. Beezie had it many times when we never even looked at it as a sacrifice for an individual accolade at that event. It was very clear. The first most important thing is the team event. And that's it.
That was how you got to Aachen. That was how you got to Rome. That was how you got to Spruce Meadows.
Yeah, that's how you got to all the good shows, being a good team rider. Yeah.
So one last question. What is the definition of success for you, and do you feel that your life was a success?
You go.
First of all, I hope we're nowhere near done. We have a lot to do, and then we'll figure out if we were successful or not.
Don't you have the feeling that you already were very successful?
I think we've had good successes. I think we've set goals, a lot of which we've attained. Some, of course, we haven't. Have we cured cancer or something like that? No. But I think one thing that motivates me or makes me feel like I'm doing something to help the greater good that's out there is when kids or somebody tells me that I motivated them, or that I was their idol, or I was
a mentor,
or
good example,
somebody that they looked up to. And that makes me feel good that there's something more than jumping horses over fences out there for what I do.
For me, to add to it a little bit, one thing I do think that in particular Beezie's been very successful at is, for me, if I look at things in a big general way, very often what people do is not that important. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, certainly, we haven't, like Beezie said, cured cancer, this, that. But the person that works, opening the door for somebody, maybe brightens somebody's day. So how he or she does it is really important. And I would say one thing I'm extremely proud of is how Beezie has done her career. The accomplishments, I don't want to at all diminish the importance. That's huge. I think the accomplishments are huge. But the satisfying thing to me is how she's made those accomplishments. And I think it goes a little bit back to your earlier question that, everybody doesn't know everything about Beezie, and everybody doesn't know everything maybe about me. But that's all right. That's all right. I think it would be very important that how we've done things is maybe the more important thing.
Well, you opened the door of your barn to us, and you definitely brighten our day. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.